believe the church is in better condition than it has been at any time in its entire history. My beloved brethren and sisters,
welcome to
Once Upon
a Mormon,
another testament of religious abuse.
So many have been hurt.
Persecutions may rage, mobs may combine.
Whom shall we go?
Sown in corruption. We need you.
Never again.
Well, hey everyone, welcome back to Once Upon a Mormon.
Hello.
Today we're going to be, hello guys. I should introduce my lovely co-hosts today.
Just in case you missed this last week.
Yes. Yeah. Just spoiler, it's the same three people that are always here.
Man, imagine
but we
that.
almost got the missionaries on today.
Almost had two very special
We almost
guests.
had some special guests. Yeah.
Fuck me.
Very special, that's for sure.
They ended up calling me, Sister May.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. I got to check how many times they called. One,
It
two,
was
three,
while
four,
we were
five,
we were
six,
just
seven,
about to-
8.
While we were about to record this, just as we were getting ready to press the record button, all of a sudden, 8 spam calls in a row.
Yep. It was no caller ID, so I picked up and I was like, hello? And I hear, hello? Who's this? And I was like, you called me. Who's this? Like, you go first. Like, they're like, oh, it's Elder Brown. And I was like, okay.
Here we go.
Literally, that's what I was thinking, because my parents tricked me into the missionaries' dinner tonight, and I was like, fuck, they've given the missionaries my number now that they're back in town. I was like, God fucking damn it. I was trying to like fly under the radar, but yeah, then ended up having like this shit call, and like they couldn't string 2 sentences together. Like, I can't even remember now. All I remember is them being like, oh, what are you up to? I'm like, recording an anti-Mormon podcast, bitch. Like, fuck off.
They're trying to shut us down. I'm telling you guys, this is,
The church is coming for us.
Straight from the top, okay? Yeah, I'm scared.
Blink
We're about
twice
to
if you're not
reveal
okay.
some, like...
Deep
We're
shit.
going to... We're going to be going into some of the really weird, very, like, the church calls it sacred, but, it's just really very, very secret, weird shit that the church doesn't want other people to really know about. So yeah, buckle in, guys. We're gonna get right into it. Okay, so kind of taking off from where we left off last time. We talked a little bit about baptisms in the temple. So, baptisms for yourself are done in the church meeting house. Baptisms for the dead are done in the temple. And generally the youth go and do that. I think as an adult you can go and do it as well, but it's, I don't know, like the youth do a lot of that stuff. So was there anything else you guys wanted to talk about in relation to temple baptisms before we move through to the different ordinances?
I'm pretty good.
Yeah,
A fair bit.
I do just want to mention, like, the baptisms can be kind of embarrassing from a, like, sister's point of view, because, like, if you're on your period as a 12-year-old, you don't want to wear a tampon, and then all the young men and all, like, everybody that you don't want to know you're on your period, they fucking know, and it's all whispered, like, oh, why is Sister May not doing baptisms today? And then you hear, it's because she's on her period, and you're like, shut the fuck up. Yeah, just that is really embarrassing, and I hated it, and I got my period every time I went to the temple. So that was just fantastic.
You just weren't worthy enough.
Oh, I know. The Lord was like, boop.
Smite her
God
down.
was saving you from those baptism waters.
Yeah.
Sorry if you can hear my dog in the background. He's like licking himself. Henry.
Oh, Henry.
Oh, Henry.
Fine puppy.
Yeah. Okay, so there is quite a lot of stuff that goes on in the temple that we want to go through, so we're just going to keep this rolling. So the next thing that you can do in the temple, and you have to do this for yourself as part of that like covenant pathway, but these ordinances are also done for and in behalf of like your dead ancestors and stuff as well.
This is where they drag the corpses.
I think it's
Corpse bride.
Yeah.
I wish. Maybe I would have stayed awake then.
That would have been interesting for sure. But no, when you go through the temple for the first time, you are doing it for yourself. So you are making the promises. You are like being anointed and receiving all of that stuff for yourself, for your salvation. So before going through the temple, you do get told like bits and pieces about it, but because everything, like the temple rituals are so like, in air quotes, sacred, they're like nobody really tells you the specifics of what happens. You go in pretty much blind. You know that there's going to be like, changing in and out of different things. You know that there's going to be promises made. You don't know what those promises are. You know that like everything that you're doing, you kind of have to do to be able to be exalted. So that's kind of the knowledge that
about like what promises and covenants you're going to make. They're like, oh, you'll find that out like when you make them, which I think is absolutely fucking ridiculous, because by then like you can't just get up and walk out, because it's like yuck. Yeah.
Kind of awkward.
And normally as well, normally as well, when you go through the temple, like if you've grown up in a Mormon family, like it's kind of a big deal. So like you'll probably have a lot of your family members there, going through the temple like with you at the same time, so that they can like be there with you to support you and stuff. So you've got all of these people that are kind of looking at you and making sure that you comply. And you don't want to let them down. So there's that whole aspect as well. So let's just talk about.
I remember when I went through to the rest of it. Yeah, I had some people from church that were close, and there's some people that were preparing to go on the mission that had already been through, and then my parents and auntie and uncle and all that. They were all there in the room when it happened as well. It is a big sort of family-centered event for those that can do it.
Yeah.
No pressure.
I think when I went through, I had. I think I had my grandparents there, and, my mum and dad would have been there, or maybe just my mum at the time. And like my older sister, and that was, it's a big deal. Actually, maybe me, I don't know. I can't remember if my older sister had been endowed yet. She might not have been able to go. The other thing I guess to point out is that only people who have been through the temple and received those like, all of those ordinances themselves, like they're the only ones that can go into the temple and to witness those things as well. So
once you've been through the first time, you can then go back and see other people do it and stand in place of whoever's you're going through for that type of thing.
Yeah. That's also important when it comes to like marriages in the temple. If you have friends that you want to see like your wedding, like if they're not part of the church and if they haven't gone through that whole process, then they don't get to be there. Like they're not allowed in to see you get married. So
I have a fun story about this. So on my mum's side, the oldest child, so my aunt and her now husband, they went to Vegas and eloped, which is like a big thing because we're in Australia, would have cost lots of money. I remember growing up and having my mum, who lies a lot about things to kind of scare me into doing the right thing, but she would tell me that my aunt eloped because she was mad that she didn't get to go and watch her siblings get married. And then I actually lived with this aunt last year, and I asked her about it, and she was like, no, we were just in Vegas and decided to get married. And I was like, makes sense.
It's not all about you, Mom.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. So there's a lot of pressure, I think, when you go through the temple for the first time and you really don't know what you're getting yourself into. So I think that's a really big deal. There's no real informed consent because they don't really tell you what's about to happen.
That's it.
And I really like that wording, informed consent, because that is not really a thing that is anywhere in the church. There is no proper information. So nobody can give proper informed consent within the Mormon church.
Well, that's the thing, is they rely on people getting pressured into doing something they don't know too much about. It's made out to be, nice and fluffy, and so they go along with it not knowing what it's actually going to be, and then by the time they're actually in it or through it, it's too awkward to pull back. There's no choice but to continue on. You go through the temple, you don't have this consent, you don't have this knowledge of what's going to go on, and all of a sudden you've made all these big promises. Like in the early days, we touched on it last episode, they had a blood oath that if you were to reveal it, that you would kill yourself, that type of thing. And they've already made it through before they actually know what's going on, and there's no turning back.
And I don't know about any other neurospicy people, but when I'm in those situations, it's like my ears turn off and I just don't really hear what's going on. And then I remember sitting and being actually thinking back and being well, no going back now because I already promised that.
Yeah. Okay, so the first ordinance after baptism is your initiatories. And this is where they symbolically wash and anoint you in preparation to receive your endowment. So I think the roots of this particular thing kind of came from I think back with Moses. They had to wash and anoint people before they could go through the tabernacle or whatever. So, Joseph Smith has basically brought that back and been oh, yeah, they did it back then. We'll do it now. And I think back in the day, they would do a proper, full body washing. And then you're anointed with oil and that anointing is sealed upon you and stuff. Today, and when I went through, and I guess probably when you guys went through as well, it's not quite like that. It's a little bit more symbolic. So basically what happens is you get dressed up in your white clothing. So I think something, I don't know if we mentioned it, but in the temples, you're dressed all in white. Everybody is in full white clothing. So the women are in these really long white dresses, long sleeves, men are in completely white suits, white shoes as well. The ladies wear slippers. I think the men wear slippers as well.
Yeah, just slip-on shoes, yeah.
Yeah.
They're actually really
you're dressed
comfy.
all in white.
Yeah, it is. They're
They
flats.
are.
I should find
Everything's
mine
white.
and use them
The
as
tie's
house
white.
shoes.
The belt's white. I'm white.
Everything except the apron. Yeah. Blend right in.
All the people inside the temple are white.
We're not a racist church. That was sarcastic for all of you listeners.
Yeah.
Very racist.
Okay, so we, so my memory of going through the initiatory thing is basically you get taken through these few different cubicle kind of things, and at each stage there's a different thing that happens. So they symbolically wash you where and I think the other really interesting thing is that the initiatories is the only place where women, because basically a temple worker will be the one to administer these ordinances to you, I guess.
Is it?
No,
Sorry?
well, for the women, it
It was
another
all
woman.
women on the women's side and males on the male side.
I think it's really, really interesting. Like, it's the only place really in the church where women sort of get to do
Women
this
get the priesthood.
priesthoody thing.
Finally.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember being so confused